Hold on. Welcome everyone to the first Google Hangout of this year's Intersection project. We are talking about citizen science today. My name is Chris Goforth. I'm the head of citizen science for the Museum of Natural Sciences, and we're going to be talking about the porch light activity that we've been doing the last week and a half, looking at insects at porch lights and then writing about our experiences. So I just had some questions for people that we're hoping we could get started with. Including, what some of the things you guys saw that were really exciting to you. So does anyone have anything that they observed they'd like to share?
Okay, introduce yourself.
Go ahead, Asia.
Hello, Asia.
Hi.
Hello?
My name is Asia.
Hello.
I saw a moth.
Okay, what was exciting about that?
The colors.
Why?
Because the wings were lighter than the actual body.
How big was your moth? Was it a little one or was it big?
It was big.
Love it.
But I don't know.
Because she didn't click on one. All right, how many of the rest of you actually saw moths? I know lots of people are complaining about not seeing moths.
Okay, sorry, Chris. What was that last question? We're trying to figure out when we should be muted and unmuted, and it's.
You guys can probably be unmuted most of the time. I was just asking how many of you actually saw moths, because I know some people are complaining about not actually getting to see moths, so I'm just curious how many people actually saw them.
Show of hands.
Why is the screen freaking out?
So apparently we've got lots of moths in Hereford County.
Nice.
Ashley, Daniel, Jennifer, and NC.
Okay, so they're all home.
Uh-huh. Says my volume's not working. Hang on.
All right, so how about some of the other people there? What kinds of things did you see that were most exciting to you?
Should I put headphones on?
Okay, so Saisha saw some things, Kyle saw some things,
Okay.
Jennifer saw some things. We'll just let them move forward and talk.
Okay. Do you want me to leave the call?
Go ahead.
Hey, girl, keep.
There was like a link.
Can you guys actually hear me?
Conversation. I don't want to be rude. I joined it.
Other people there. What kinds of things did you see
There they are.
that were most
see it?
exciting to you?
I went on the Google Doc and there was like I had a notification and it said join.
That's what you saw.
Let me go back to it.
All right, can everyone actually hear me? If you could like raise your hand or something, if you can hear me, that would be great, just so I can see
Are you
who.
in there?
Okay, Jennifer's class. All right, Daniel's class. Looks like there's a couple people that still can't. Hey, good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hi. Okay, so the first question I asked was, what people were seeing this week that they were really excited about at their lights. So, still hoping to get a few more answers to that one.
Anybody got any things that they want to talk about? Scott? What'd you see? Okay. Students saw spiders, moths. What else? Beetles. Some people saw nothing. Cockroaches. Hey, did y'all know that cockroaches and water bugs are the same thing? You know how some people say water bugs, but it's really with the cockroaches too, right?
I'm going to get a few more answers to
Am I
that
wrong?
one. Yeah, people like to use water bug because it sounds more polite and less gross than cockroach.
What'd you say? Answers about water bugs.
Students saw spiders, moths, what else? Beetles. Some people saw nothing. Cockroaches. Hey, did y'all know that cockroaches and water bugs are the same thing? You know how some people
Major delay.
say water bugs, but it's really with the cockroaches too, right?
I'm going to get a few more answers to that one. Yeah, people like to use water bug because it sounds more polite and less gross than cockroach.
What'd you say? Students saw spiders, moths, what else? Beetles. Some people saw nothing. Cockroaches. Hey, did y'all know that cockroaches and water bugs?
I'm going to get out.
Yeah. Major delay.
If y'all can mute
You
yourselves
guys
when
want to
you're
say
not
what you
speaking,
saw?
we're getting some echo
Hey, water bugs.
And little tiny bugs. And I did
People like to use water bug because it sounds more polite and less gross than cockroach.
Is the loop still going?
Yeah, I think so. We're having a few issues.
All right, so technology is not always reliable. Something to learn. We're good now?
Okay, I can hear you, Daniel.
Cool.
All right, so another question that I had for people was how weather impacted the things that you saw. So I know the weather's changed several times since we have started observing our porch light insects. Did you guys notice a difference? Did you go out more than one night and see whether cooler nights had fewer insects or more insects, or whether rain impacted anything? Or
I saw more moths. More moths in the spring, like after.
Some of my students said they saw more moths when it rained.
I did too. I was a little surprised that I saw so many different things when it was raining. I didn't expect to see nearly as many things, but I saw more actually on a couple of nights that it was raining. At least the really warm nights.
I did too.
Same.
When it was cold, I didn't see
mosquitoes in the photos.
So what we're saying is that the temperature actually had more to do with what we were seeing than the rain, we think.
Do you guys know why that is?
Some of my students said they saw more moths when it rained.
Yeah, I did too. I was a little
So
surprised
what
that
we're
I saw
saying
so
is
many
that when
different
it's
things
cold, that the
when it
bugs
was raining. I
don't
didn't
want to come
expect
out
to
as
see
much.
nearly as many
Is
things,
our
but I
hypothesis.
saw more actually on a couple of nights that it. Yeah, so insects are considered cold-blooded. They're exothermic, so they depend on the environment to get their heat. And so, when it gets cooler out, they slow down. So basically, everything gets slower and slower the colder they get. So it's not surprising that on cooler nights we don't see quite as many things, just because they can't move around quite as effectively as they can on warmer nights.
Oh! My name is
Insects are considered cold. I can't hear myself like 4 different times.
So Braxton's out of the picture, but he just made a really good observation that I wanted to share, which is that that like it made sense to him, Chris, once you explained about being cold-blooded, why the mosquitoes were around in the summer but not in the winter.
Yeah. Has anyone seen mosquitoes the last few nights? I mean, I've gotten lots of bites since I've been going out and looking at my porch light every night.
So we saw more mosquitoes in the rain than we did when it was dry.
Okay. Did anyone else have that experience? More mosquitoes in the rain?
Jump in.
I saw mosquitoes. I saw mosquitoes.
Our students didn't notice a difference.
All right.
So yeah, jump on in, get close, and tell them what you saw.
I don't know if you guys can hear me, but when it was raining, I saw mosquitoes as well.
Go ahead.
I
Again.
just saw like
Yeah, can you guys hear David?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, go ahead, David. You gotta speak up.
I saw mosquitoes when it was raining as well. I just put my input.
Okay. I just saw some moths. I didn't see that many bugs. Can we observe like multiple nights? Like
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
what I've been doing.
yeah, Chris has been observing what, every night for how long, Chris?
Well, I went out the entire month of August, and then I had a break of a couple of weeks, and then went back to it. I have some pictures if you guys want to see some of the things that I've seen at my light. So here's some of the things I've seen recently. So this one here is a brown lacewing. They're really small, but they're one of the net-winged insects. And these guys, have you guys seen these? They're really little flies, but they look like moths. They're called moth flies. They sometimes they're also called drain flies. Their larvae live in pretty gross aquatic habitats like the bottom of drains and some polluted waters, but they're really adorable flies. You might see these in like gyms and school bathrooms and things like that where there's a lot of people washing their hands and kind of dirty and lots of loose skin cells and things. And then this is a midge. They're really closely related to mosquitoes, but they're a different group. They don't bite. So I've been seeing a whole lot of these since it started raining and didn't get quite as many before. And so some of the moths that we see too are really small. Like this guy here is only about 5 millimeters long, so he is very, very small, hard to see. So you gotta look really closely sometimes. A lot of things we see at lights at this time of year are really small.
So I don't know if you guys talked about this already, but one of the things I was wondering about and that came up in the Twitter chat was about the moon cycles and wind speed and how that affects the ways that entomologists look, the ways that they collect, the things that they look for, the places they look. Had you guys already talked about that?
No, we haven't. So I know from my experience blacklighting in various places, anytime the moon is out, you tend to get a lot less activity just because the moon provides a lot of extra light that just competes with the lights that you might be using to collect your insects. So, you know, the night of the supermoon, the eclipse, I actually got more than I expected, just probably because it was really warm that night. But a lot of times when you see a really bright moon, you won't get nearly as many insects at your light as you would at other times. That plays into, you know, a lot of the different reasons or explanations people have for why insects are attracted to lights to begin with. You know, a lot of people have thought for a long time that the moon has something to do with that. It may or may not. It's still open for debate. But you know,
is that the transverse orientation stuff? So I was reading something about, you know, how the moths like kind of hone in on the light and hone in on particular stars or celestial objects to navigate. And so is that related? Or?
Yeah, so, you know, it's thought that they probably have been using those, you know, natural lights for a really long time, and then we came along and started making our own lights that confused them. But there's still a lot of question, or a lot of debate out there in the entomological community about how these things are actually using those lights and what they're using them for, what exactly they're looking for, what's causing them to move around.
Awesome. So are there citizen science projects around that? Are there ways we can contribute to helping scientists understand that phenomenon?
I'm not aware of one at the moment, but it's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that research would look like, but it seems like it would be something interesting to try to engage in.
I would imagine a lot of it is neurological kinds of things. So a lot of times when they do insect studies, they'll put little these little tiny sensors into insect nerves and measure their electrical impulses. I would imagine they would do something like that to study the lights.
Oh, wow. So like lab work, not necessarily natural observation.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little hard to explain exactly why they're doing something if you're just watching them in the field, because there are so many competing explanations for why something might be happening the way it is.
Okay.
So looking at their exact response to different stimuli is how you really learn whether they're responding to lights for a particular reason or not. But I was curious too about how long people actually left their lights on. So I turned my light on before it got dark and then left it on until about midnight and went out a couple of times each night to look and see what was there. So in my experience, black lighting, and when I say black light, I'm talking about a UV emitting light. Like I use a little CFL bulb. Actually, I have a picture of my setup here. Over to. So this is my really fancy setup in my yard. It's just like a really cheap little CFL black light bulb on a clip light on a shepherd's hook. But UV attracts a lot more insects than just regular lights. But I left this on for 4 to 5 hours each night, and a little later in the evening, the more insects I saw. So I'm curious, when people went out and what they saw at different times of the night.
You guys want to talk about that? Different times of the night, like how the observation.
I only went out one night. I need to go out again, and I just looked at the lamps outside on campus.
Did you notice change over time?
Not really.
Okay. Yeah, so it depends on kind of length and duration.
I went out for maybe like 30 minutes, so.
Okay, so we've got about 30 minutes here. How about you, Dave?
I went out for probably an hour, I've been out 3 nights, and it's this little light that I have right next to my dorm room, and it's I went out at like 10:30 one night, and there were a ton of bugs. I went out right when it got dark one night, and that's when I saw I have beetles. I don't like you.
Oh, cool.
That was really red dust, and then I went out at like 11, which is similar to
Okay.
like lots of little tiny bugs fluttering around.
Yeah. We baited one of the trees in our yard with the moth bait, like a mixture of something fermented, something sweet, something sticky. And we went out about 4 times between dusk and about midnight. And the only thing we attracted was a huge cockroach. It was a little disappointing. Still yet, we've had no moths come to the area. We were actually able to find one at a building nearby, hiding up under the eaves, like the shingle on the eaves meet. He's kind of hiding things under there, but we haven't had anything to our trap that we set.
Yeah.
No moths for you? Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten some moths, but most of them have been very small. So, I've had to look really hard to actually see them because they're tiny, the ones that I've been getting. So I was hoping to hear some poems that people created too. So does anyone want to share any of their poems that they wrote or?
And by the way, Catherine's trying to get in the Hangout.
Waterbug quick lights.
Okay, I'm pulling it up. All right.
Okay. Spider.
Wait, hang on. Are you ready for them to go? I can't tell if somebody else is trying to speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Spiders. I have 8 legs that help me get where I need to be. They're creepy, crawly legs that disgust me. I spin my web to get food. Their sticky webs make my skin crawl when I accidentally touch one. I suck the blood out of other bugs to survive. The poor bugs that get caught in a web get eaten ruthlessly. I live a simple life. I live a simple life. I am a spider. I am a human. The end.
Nice.
Yay.
Snaps.
Okay, you want to share yours?
You want me to share mine? Okay.
Yeah.
So Zach's got one that he'd like to share. Is that okay?
Yes.
Go for it.
All right. I am having trouble with words. Words just aren't coming to me. I seem to want to write a story and not a poem. I think I just read a poem about the brown, furry, weird-looking bug, and yet words just aren't coming. Finally, words are coming to me. Nope, I thought they were. I have a little bit though. One night, cool and windy, I saw something, sitting there in complete silence. I watched as the furry, soft creature sat in utter silence, almost knowing I was there. I watched for hours until it flapped its wide wings, finally showing its true beauty.
All right. That was great.
Oh, look, you got snaps.
And I don't know what that means.
Oh,
That means you did well.
Catherine, tell us what snaps are all about in the spoken word community.
Snaps mean during the poem you typically snap, so you won't interrupt the poet. But so if you hear something that you like during the poem or that inspires you, you snap to it. But at the end is when you clap. So you can't clap at the end. You snap during the poem. So
I can't hear anything. Can anybody else hear anything?
I can hear.
Okay.
So you clap at the end. A lot of people
Ready for another one?
misunderstand
So,
Hold on just a moment.
Ashley, can you hear us?
I just heard you say, Ashley, can you hear us?
Yeah, Catherine was just explaining that, I don't know why you couldn't hear her, but she was explaining that snaps are throughout the poem, so you don't interrupt the poem, but it shows you're engaged, you like something, something resonates, and then at the end, clapping is appropriate, so, yeah!
I can't see or hear Catherine at all.
Oh, that's interesting.
I didn't even know she was on.
Chris, can you see Catherine? Dan?
Yeah, I can see Catherine.
Okay. Huh.
I don't have her on ignore or mute.
I don't know. Okay, so if Catherine's...
Catherine, I'm sorry if I interrupt you.
It's okay.
Or
You know you
interrupted
can't
already.
hear me bad.
Well, maybe in the chat we'll be like, Catherine's talking.
Okay, that'd be good.
Okay. Cool.
All right, did you have another poem that you guys wanted to share?
Yeah.
The first one was Anna Gray, and the second one, this one's Mary Tate's.
Okay. Crickets and grasshoppers all over the ground. Crickets and grasshoppers jumping all about. Hopping all around without a single care. One here, one there. Crickets and grasshoppers everywhere. Green and brown and black ones too. You see many every day, some old and some new. Yay.
Oh, I just read
Let's see if somebody else has
Did we
something.
already go over? Did we already go over why the bugs are attracted to the light?
Come on, come on.
We did briefly, and it said that it's still pretty open for debate. It's thought that insects are attracted or use natural light like the moon and stars to navigate by, but no one really knows exactly how it works or what they're specifically looking for. Or did you guys have any poems you want to share in your group?
We can't hear anybody else talking again.
Yeah, I can't hear anyone either.
Okay.
Oh no.
Does anybody? Who are you asking, Chris? Which group are you asking? Anyone?
Yeah.
I feel like we're hogging the poetry time. Does anybody else have one? If not, we have more.
I can do my poem that I wrote.
Okay. All right. This is Brianna's poem.
All right, so Catherine's going to do her poem then.
Wait, am I doing my poem or is Brianna doing her poem?
So, silence for us.
All right, how about you go ahead, Catherine?
Okay. The light is like God, guiding his people to him. The moth was attracted to the light like light is attached to safe. They are safe in this artificial light that burns when you linger too close. They appear from the darkness like quickness. 1 minute there was nothing but empty blackness, the next was crowded insects, flew as high as the light would allow it. Never straying too far for fear it'll lose its sight in the darkness. Can you see me more clearly in your made-up light? The light is like vision, making visible everything darkness hides. The moth was attracted to the light like evil is attached to darkness. The light is the only way these bugs can find their way. They appear from the darkness like stars, because night skies flew as high as their sight would take them, light the only thing that allows them to see. You fear me less in the darkness. This is what I saw in the light. The end.
Nice. Okay, we're unmuted now. We can't hear anybody.
Yeah, no one's talking right now.
Okay, and Brianna.
Ready? Ew. I see it crawling. It's walking toward me. It's so gross. I hope it doesn't bite me. I hope it doesn't try to kill me. It's going toward the light. It's coming toward the light. It's so close. It's so small. It's so big. I wonder what it's thinking. I wonder what it's looking at. It's so weird. I wonder if it thinks like me. I wonder if it knows I can think. We're so different. I'm staring up at the light. I'm looking down at the human. I turn on the light to see. The light came on, so I followed it. Why is it here? I'm going inside now. I'm flying away now. Goodbye, bug. Goodbye, human. Goodbye.
Aww. I really liked your thought process and the questions that you asked.
Sorry.
Hey, Ashley, could you hear Catherine?
No.
She said that she really liked the thought process and the questions that group asked in the poem.
Good. Thanks, Brianna. You did a great job. Oh, I'm sure we are not going to hate yours.
Well,
you want to
I asked Daniel about his artwork that his students were doing, but then he disappeared, so.
I'll share.
You can talk. You're fine.
Okay, me and Erica.
Anna Gray, will you switch with Erica?
How do I keep up? Okay. Okay, you can do that one, and I'll do this. And then the stuff that has like the squiggly lines, so we say. Okay. Yeah. I'm a moth. I am a butterfly. We're bugs. I came out at night. I come out during the day. Humans calling me a nuisance. Humans love me. I hatch from crystals. I hatch from cocoons. I love porch lights. I stay away from the light. I'm dull colored. I am bright colored.
At the end of the day, we are still bugs. Thanks, Erica. I wish I had my hair pulled.
I thought that poem was
I
really
can't
good
tell.
because you can easily find comparisons between.
I
Can
think.
you hear me?
I don't think she can hear you still.
I was saying that I thought the poem was good because
Yeah,
you
can
can
somebody
go in your
tell us
head
what
somewhere
Catherine
else.
said?
Catherine says the poem's good. Go ahead, I'll translate for you.
I thought the poem was good because you can easily take it somewhere else. Compare the moths and butterflies to people in society or social issues that's going on now.
She liked it because you could take the comparison between moths and butterflies to other things such as people in society and whatnot.
That's one place where like I'm really interested in that comment because I feel like that's one place where it's kind of like we haven't done that really, have we? We're still kind of talking about imagery, and I'm wondering what strategies Catherine can share for how to do that, how to make it broader than just ourselves and our experiences and what we're seeing when we're writing the poems.
Okay, so I would say that, look at things that it relates to. So she used moths and butterflies, but what is pretty and what is the same thing, but one looks at it pretty and one looks at it ugly? Or like you got to find things that are outside of just the bugs that sparks thoughts. Why is the light referred to good, but the darkness evil? Take it there and look at more than just a bug. What does it symbolize? Stuff like that. Did they hear that?
We did. I was going to actually ask my students, what are there any places in the poems that you've written already that you think, oh, hey, I can go back and revise and maybe make it broader? Like, are there any places where you're using those kinds of symbols that we have? Or anybody?
I feel like I could put more. Oh, my name's Steven Hollingsworth, and I feel like I can put more imagery into my poem because I believe I only used like 2 examples of imagery in my poem with the, what was those things called?
The dialogic poems?
Oh, the dialogic poems. I feel like I can add more imagery to poems than I usually do.
And so you feel like that imagery might be a place where you could pull in some of that symbolism? Okay, that's interesting. I ask these things because I'm not a poet, and so teaching the writing of poetry is an interesting experience for me. So any chance I get to pick a poet's brain, I have to.
Okay. Well, in my poem, I even compare the light to God. And, it's like he's guiding his people to him. So if I wanted to elaborate on that one line and draw that metaphor out and make it a whole poem, that would be me symbolizing the light as God. Or I even hinted on some places where, the moth was attracted to the light, like light is attached to safe. Everybody thinks, being in the light is safe, but being in the dark is evil. So it's some metaphors in there that you can draw out, or you can just simply just put there to provoke thought from your audience.
And I shouldn't have said that I'm not a poet. One of the things that's exciting about this project is that that I am discovering that I am and didn't know that I was. So I'm a poet and didn't know it.
Oh.
That's good.
So my students have questions, not necessarily about the creative writing aspect, but about writing nonfiction. So they've been working in my class on a science communication badge where they're investigating the way scientists communicate science to lay audiences and also to scientific audiences. And so they've come up with some questions for Chris to ask about the ways that she thinks about writing and writing for different audiences. Is now a good time for those questions?
Sure.
Awesome. Yeah, just make sure you talk loudly.
Right.
loudly.
So how do you learn to write science for multiple audiences, like the broad group of students that we're all here, like we're all in the group? How do you know how to communicate that level through all of them?
So how do I learn to do that?
You know how to do that now.
Sorry, I can't quite hear the last little bit.
Hands in, get closer. Speak louder than you think.
How do you know how to write science for multiple audiences?
So, scientists like to use very technical terms. So the way I tend to think about it is, if I'm writing for a scientific audience, I'm going to use those technical terms that mean something to that audience. So, you would use, more specific terms that refer to very specific small things. So I would use the word like ethology instead of behavior, or physiology to talk about the processes inside of an animal or a plant or a bacteria, whatever it happens to be. So you've got these very specific words that mean very specific things that you use just with that audience because it means something to them. But for the general audience, most people don't know that the word ethology means the study of behavior. So if you just use different language, you can reach multiple audiences. So I try to think about who's actually, reading my blog. I know I have a 10-year-old that's a very big fan of my blog, so I try to think about her when I write so that I'm not writing anything that's too advanced that she's just not going to understand. And I'm not really dumbing it down, I'm just changing the way that I write it so that I'm using words that are more familiar to more people and not aiming it right towards a scientist that knows what I'm talking about already.
Thank you.
Did you have a question?
So what does that relate to in terms of what we've been talking about with how speakers and writers present themselves?
It relates to ethos. When she's using bigger words, it would change how she's presenting herself or how her ethos is being portrayed throughout her writing.
Okay. Good.
Sounds like an AP English 11 class going on there. I don't think we introduced ourselves, but we're a Foundations Writing English 1100 class at ECU, so there's a lot of overlap between what you guys are doing and then what the college students are doing here. So Mary Kate, did you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. What advice would you give a young communicator just starting to go public with their science interests or research?
So you're talking about for public audiences or for scientific audiences or both?
Or both.
I think probably the best advice I would have is just know your audience, and write to that audience. I've gotten, I wouldn't say necessarily complaints, but comments from certain scientists that I don't write quite as scientifically, I guess, as a lot of other people, just because the whole point of science is that you're communicating what you've learned to other people. That's the really important step of science. I mean, you're doing an experiment, you're learning something new about the world, but until you share it with other people, it doesn't really mean much because no one else is going to benefit from the knowledge that you've gained. So taking that next step and telling other people about it is really, really important. Ideally, everyone should be able to understand what you're writing regardless of which audience they are, but that in reality, that's not how it works. Scientists like to use big words, they like to use really technical jargon, and a lot of time they have a hard time letting go of that when they're talking to public audiences or non-scientific audiences. So I would just, my best advice would just be know your audience, write to your audience, use the type of language that they're expecting you to write, and that can be really effective, just gearing it towards whichever type of people you're trying to reach.
So yeah, that's something that my students will hear me say all the time is, write for a particular audience. And sometimes I think, well, what does that mean? What does it look like? Like, how do you get to know, like you said, that 10-year-old reader on your blog? Like, do you do research around like audience awareness? I mean, what is the process of knowing your audience? How do you tease that out?
Well, I know for me, I email people a lot, so people email me through my blog, and I know which types of people are out there. People make comments on blogs, so that's a good way to get to know people. Seeing which posts people like best and which ones people respond to really well. That can tell you a lot about, pardon me, what kinds of people are out there and what they're interested in. Help guide future writing. The 10-year-old that I know, her mom has been emailing me, and so I know she's reading what I'm writing, and I know she understands what I'm writing. So I know that I can reach at least that one 10-year-old, and I think it's worthwhile to me to think about that one 10-year-old out there and try to stay away from some of the really big words. Make sure I'm defining my terms as I'm going through if I'm using the big words.
That's awesome. So like putting a face, like this concept of audience can be nebulous, but putting a particular face on one audience member and thinking about writing for them, and they become representative of a larger group. That's pretty cool. I think that's a neat technique that that writers in my classes could benefit from as well. I had a student, Kendall, wasn't able to join us this morning because she's in a science lab, but she wanted me to ask the question, is it challenging to catch people's interest and attention with your work? So are you trying to get folks interested in entomology, or are you thinking the folks that are reading your blog are already interested? So how do you gauge reader interest?
I honestly gauge reader interest by the number of views and how many comments I get. So I'm not writing to a specifically insect interested audience all the time. So I get people that email me or put comments in the blog that say that they weren't ever really interested in insects before, but because of the way that I write about them or the topics that I talk about, they are much more excited about it, which is always really gratifying when you're a blogger, hearing that someone's taking something that you've offered and learning something new and internalizing it. So it's a little hard because, especially with blogging, you're basically just sending this information out into the world and hoping for the best, and you don't necessarily get that feedback because you're not talking directly to those people. So unless they send you comments or email you or you look at your stats, those are the tools that you're using to tell whether people are responding the way that you hope they are to the things that you're writing.
Yeah, your post on antlions, I didn't know antlions existed, and I wasn't terribly interested in ants or antlions, right? But the way you wrote about it with sort of the passion, the excitement, the word choice, the drama, the simplicity, all those things made me interested, so I could really see pathos working. It's a nonfiction text, and you've got good evidence there, and you've got wonderful images that you take that go along with your writing, but there's an excitement there that I think is engaging and makes other people excited. Like, we know that you care about these insects. We know that you're really into them, and I think that's contagious, and that's one of the things I want students in my classes is to get so excited about the thing that they're writing about that it just spills over and they can get other people excited too.
So I'm wondering if Chris could throw up a link to some of her favorite blog posts in the Google Plus community so that students could check them out.
Yeah, I can do that. Are you talking about ones of my own or other people's?
Yeah, no, that would be great. Especially I want to go look for the one that Steph's talking about antlines.
It's the one we made the blackout poem for. If you saw that in the first preview newsletter, folks did a blackout poem, so they subtracted words out of the blog post and actually made a poem, which turned out really cool too.
Wow. Yeah, that poem was hilarious. I loved it.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Did you guys have other questions? Will, did you have questions? Please, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Will. My question is, what are some challenges or some advice you have for writing towards a general audience or a lay audience compared to? I know you said you use scientific words for a scientific audience, but how do you sometimes? I know it can be tough to transcribe that type of writing into a general audience. How do you do that?
Well, so, when you're writing for a scientific audience, a lot of times people already come into the reading of that piece of writing knowing a lot about the subject because, I write a lot about giant water bugs because that's one of the groups that I work on, but there aren't all that many people interested in giant water bugs, so the people who are reading the the documents that I provide are people that probably already have an interest and some background knowledge in what I'm talking about. So, you don't have to start from scratch, building up the story from a really basic place the way that you would with a public audience. So not many people actually know about giant water bugs outside of the small group of scientists that work on them. So when you're talking to a public audience, a non-scientific audience, you have to start at kind of a lower place because they don't necessarily come in with that level of knowledge that a scientist would when they're reading it. So you need to give them the background information to help them understand why they should care about the topic that you're writing about. Otherwise, it's just totally over their heads and lost. You lose your audience that way.
Yeah, one of the things we talk about in our class is meeting audiences where they are, right? Thinking about what their interests, background knowledge, positioning toward the topic, all that, so that you can craft introductions and making sure you're providing enough or not too much evidence that's going to be appropriate for that particular audience. So that's lovely to hear you reinforce sort of what they're learning in my class.
It relates over like science and poetry in the sense of writing and relating to your audience. I know our coach stressed to us so bad that like if we don't say it in the terms for the kids to understand, then we won't reach. The whole point of what we're doing is to reach and let them feel how we feel or feel what we want to say. It's the same with science, not necessarily with like terms, but like with general, like we can't go to certain events and do certain poems because it won't connect with the audience as well. So I like how, the crossovers between the two. It's neat.
That is cool. I mean, poetry and rhetoric weren't always separated, right?
True.
Looks like Jennifer's bell rang. It's awfully empty in that classroom now.
It is.
We're still here and we're still listening, but we have a project that we're trying to work on. So we're gonna get back to that. But we are still listening.
Did you guys have anything else?
Well, for students, if you like frog, do they care about frogs too?
They do. So Will was saying that he just posted one of his observations to the Google Plus community. You want to talk about that, Will?
I should put it on Twitter.
Oh, on Twitter. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I found a frog last night. It was I can zoom in really well. Here it is.
You can do this little tiny thing.
Green. It's green. Looking like a toad or anything, and it's probably about 11:30 at night, probably.
So what do you think this amphibian was doing?
On a wall.
Why?
Well, I'm guessing I'm like cold-blooded. He was cold.
What else might he be looking for at that light?
Oh yeah, flies.
So we're not the only people looking for insects at night, right? Or we're not the only living organism looking for insects at night.
Yeah, I posted a picture of a wall that was at a conference center I was at last weekend that was covered in midges, and it was amazing seeing how many reptiles and amphibians were coming to that light. There were so many frogs and so many lizards coming because there were just thousands of these flies there that they were eating very happily. This one little green tree frog is just sitting on the wall and just eating midge after midge after midge.
Nice. Buffet, midge buffet. So what time are we wrapping up the Hangout?
Right about now, so if you guys have any other questions, we can answer them, but if not, we can call it a day.
So do you want to do a plug for Prairie Ridge and what you do out there? Because we're not too far away. It is plausible that folks could get there.
Sure. So Prairie Ridge is the Museum of Natural Sciences field station. It's about 6 miles away from the main museums in downtown Raleigh. We're on the west side of Raleigh. It's 45 acres of constructed prairie, and we've got a forest and a stream and a pond and a variety of different educational opportunities. There it is. That's our outdoor classroom. And we offer a lot of opportunities to the public. So, my job at the museum is citizen science related. So I train people how to do citizen science projects, how to get involved in doing scientific research as citizen scientists. And a lot of what I do is at Prairie Ridge because we have this great outdoor space that we can take advantage of. Yeah, you are welcome to come to any of these programs you see here and get involved in science through the museum at Prairie Ridge.
My daughter and I went to one of the Citizen Science Saturdays last month where we were doing butterfly noticing and documentation, and then Chris took our data and uploaded it to the eButterfly project, and it was amazing. It was like an hour walk through the grounds looking at the different butterflies that were attracted to different plants. Chris was helping us identify them. I mean, it was great. She gave us cameras so that we could take pictures of what we saw, and it was really a lot of fun. So if you get a chance to do that, do those go on throughout the winter, Chris?
Yeah, we do them every week. People tend not to come when it rains or if it's very cold or very hot. So it's a little hit or miss as far as how many people show up, but we do them every week.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be an awesome thing if you guys are in the Raleigh area to take advantage of. Cool. Anything else from Megan?
I have a question. What are challenges of academic writing and publishing?
What are the challenges?
Mm-hmm.
Well, one big challenge is always money. So, if a journal has a page fee or a cost associated with the publication, then you have to have, the funds to be able to do that. The peer review process is really brutal. People are really mean. I mean, think about the worst internet troll you've ever experienced, and that's pretty much what peer reviewers do to you. So
explain what peer review is because they haven't had the research course.
Okay.
You may not.
Scientists need to vet publication or vet the research that other people are doing before it's published. So you have at least 2 people, sometimes 3 or 4, depending on the journal, who read your paper before it's published and decide whether it's worthy of publication or not. So those people are usually anonymous, and they feel like they can say anything they want, and they can be really, really, really mean. If your paper is really great, sometimes it'll just sail right through, and other times they'll just rip it to shreds. And you have to be able to have a little bit of thick skin and be able to put up with that because it's just part of the process. Once you get past those people, though, it's usually pretty easy. So the peer review is definitely that's the biggest hurdle. Getting through that, just because you have to make a strong enough argument that other people believe in what you're saying enough to think it's worthy of publication.
So is revise and resubmit common in the sciences, or is it accept without revision? I know for us, most of our acceptances are revise and resubmit or accept with revisions. Is that similar in the sciences?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you'll just get flat out rejected, but other times, if you add a component. So the trick with science, though, is that sometimes if you have to add a component, it can add a lot of time onto it, because if you need to go back and do more research to make a little bit of a stronger argument in a section, you have to go back and take the time to do that process, go through that process again so that you can add that piece that they want.
And how do you decide which journals to place your research in?
So people these days look at impact factor really heavily, which is a measure, it's an index, so it's just a number associated with how effective that journal is or how highly that journal is perceived in the scientific community. So something like, Science or Nature has got a really high impact value because or impact factor, because lots of people read it. It's an established journal. People think very highly of it. So if you can get something published in one of those publications, it has a little bit of a stronger weight, or people think that it's a more valuable or better paper than it might be in a smaller journal. So a lot of people really look at those impact factors. But, there are specific journals that are appropriate for various topics. So, a lot of what I publish has gone into either the Journal of Morphology, which is looking at the structure of organisms. So I've done a lot of work looking at the structure of giant water bug eggs. And, that kind of work gets published in a morphology journal because it's specifically looking at an audience that is interested in those structures. Behavior papers go to behavior journals. There's, cell biology journals. You kind of either choose something based on how prestigious you want your paper to be, or you're looking for a particular audience that you want that journal or that paper to go towards.
Cool. A lot of political decisions to be made in placing work.
Yeah, and sometimes there are feuds in science too. Science is very, very competitive. There's a limited amount of money, and so everyone's trying to get a leg up on the competition. You always want to publish your things first before your competitors do. So there's a lot of pressure to get things done very quickly and scoop other scientists and whatnot. So there's a lot of politics. Sometimes you've had a fight with someone who's an editor of a paper or a journal, and you're just that's never good. There's a lot of politics involved in trying to send your paper to a place where you might actually have a chance of getting it published if you're a combative person and you've made enemies in your field.
Yeah. Cool. Is that all, guys?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you too, Catherine. It was awesome.
You're welcome. Nice listening.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. And I guess we will close this down, but I appreciate your coming this morning.
Yeah, good to see you. See you online.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.